Hey, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Hopefully you guys are having a great weekend. It is 12 noon here in Nashville, Tennessee, and this is Ask Me Anything. So I'm going to kind of start real quick as people, start to jump in. All you got to do is just leave a question in the comment. I'm going to answer all of your questions. But I want to start off with something that I just did that I think a lot of people probably are not doing. I have an open day tomorrow at a property down in Gulf Shores, Alabama. It's a beachfront 6-bedroom property that I actually co-host. And so I've been going back and forth between the guest that's checking out tomorrow, seeing if they want to stay the extra day. This is what I call the upsells and the downsells for your gap night. So nobody had booked a gap night. We have an open day in between, and I just sold it for $475 to the guest that's checking in on the 31st. So that's a date that just would have went open that I literally just send. I have all this automated in Hospitable. It'll send out an automated message about 10 days in advance. And I've been going back and forth. And then literally the guest is checking in just decided. So that is essentially, it started as a 40% discount. It's about a 60% discount. That's just over $1,000 a night right now. And we got an upsell for $475. The positioning is the guest checks out tomorrow. The house is going to be clean tomorrow. That the guests coming in on the 31st can arrive at any time they want. They can come at 5 o'clock in the morning if they want. Really, we'll let them check in anytime after 7 p.m. On the 30th. So that gives extra time for my cleaners to get everything ready. And then they come in, and essentially they could stay the entire night. These guests they're probably going to arrive around 10 or 11 a.m. On the 31st. But that at 10 a.m., that gives them an extra 6 hours. That's like a full day of beach time for them. So this is something that you guys should be doing, is make sure you're doing the upsells and the downsells. If you are in my host academy, there's a whole action plan on that, on how to upsell, downsell. And then if you're using something like Hospitable or Get Bestie, you can actually use AI to be able to set this and do it based on timing, and also a little bit of AI to be able to do it as well. So I'm Bill Faeth. If you don't know me, we're broadcasting on multiple channels. This is an Ask Me Anything. I will stay as long as you guys have questions. If you don't have questions, I'm going to go hang out with my family. So just pop your questions into the comment section, and I will start rolling. I added Eric Corson's Hospitable Gap Night message March 1st and picked up 6 extra nights this month. That is a huge deal. I don't know who that is because I can't see it, unfortunately. Actually, let me refresh, and I probably can. But how much extra revenue did you generate off of those 6 extra nights in the first month? That's what's critical, right? So, during the gold rush, from pretty much right about now, if you were in the South, it could have been later into the year in 2020. We really didn't have to do this stuff. We could do just about anything that we wanted to and make money with any type of property. We have to work for it today, fortunately or unfortunately. So that's something that the filling the gaps, it's an occupancy game today as much as it is an ADR game. During the gold rush, it was just strictly an ADR game. That is not the case now moving forward. Brandon Pottenberg, I am seeing tons of markets with ski resorts like Lee, Deadwood. All the top performers are at the base of ski resorts, but the market's highest revenue months are in the summer. Would you consider going into downtown Deadwood to think it could beat something near resort? Was that your idea? Risk in Banner Elk? So Banner Elk is typically stronger during the summer than it is the winter. Once again, this all comes down. I mean, location is super critical. At a ski resort, I would never be, probably unless the property ended up being the attraction in any ski. It doesn't matter if it's Deadwood, Big Sky, Vail, whatever. I'd probably never be more than a mile away and to have a view of the ski resort. If you don't have those two things, it's going to be very challenging to be able to compete. Obviously, buying ski in, ski out today is very, very expensive. I've tried to buy ski in, ski out, but I just can't find anything that will work. I'm not interested in 5 to 10% returns. I'm looking for 20% and higher. And it's overpriced. So that's one of the problems. But I did not purchase my first Banner Elk property, which is my large elk lodge that is up on a mountain. And you can't see the ski resorts, and it's 10 minutes from Sugar and 15 to 20 to get up the mountain to beach. That is not why I purchased. I purchased for the summer months there. The winter was good, but it wasn't amazing. It wasn't like a peak season until this year. This is the first year that we've really turned it into a peak season. And honestly, my wife made some small updates to the design element of the house that we do every single off season. We did that kind of in the shoulder season, and we had Andrew Keller come in and reshoot the photos. I can't emphasize enough, and I know some of you probably hate that I keep using Andrew's name, but I haven't found anybody that can do what he does. Other people may think that they do, but he's exceptional. And, he's coming to shoot my lake house that I've had good photos on, and it's overperformed for the 3 years that I've owned it. But, I think it'll go to that next level. So that next level is what kicked up with Andrew. It's pretty crazy. Oh, that was Joe. Hey, Joe. Joe added Eric Corson's hospitable gap night message March 1st and picked up 6 nights this month. 5-bedroom tier 1 directly across from the beach. When would you change summer nights from 7-night minimum to 5-night minimum to the 3-2-1 strategy? Currently have about 30% booked. May, early August. So this all depends, Joe, on your property. So you have to really know where you sit in the grand scheme of things, right? And we have to be honest with ourselves. Are we in the 50th percentile? Are we in the 70th percentile? Are we in the super property above 90% percentile? And that's the way that I look at it. So I can tell you, I've got my 3-bedroom, 2-bath beachfront property, Fort Morgan, Alabama. And that is, I just moved that to a 3-2-1 here at the basically the end of March, at the beginning of April. Moved it to a 3-2-1. I have a brand new beachfront property, tier 2, 7 bedrooms with 2 bunks that'll sleep, I think it's 20 people, 18 or 20 people. And it's probably one of the best designs Bria has ever done. It's brand new. We just put it on the market in January. And I am seriously contemplating doing 3-2-1 without even thinking about doing 7 nights, because I'm a big believer, and I've discussed this with Emil Sakal, one of my inner circle coaches who's an expert in revenue management and an OG in my mastermind, about not doing 7-day minimums, because I can just implement the 3-2-1 and increase the pricing, for 3 nights. So I'm testing it early at my little Dragonfly property, beachfront in Fort Morgan, Alabama. And I may take this brand new property, which is right now on 7 nights. I might change it immediately, like very, very quickly within the next week or two, and move that to a 3-2-1 strategy. I don't really want to do a 1, but if I do a 3 and a 3, then I will need to sell that gap night. So if I can do, and that property particularly, if I can, and just for easy math, I'm going to take, like, I think right now it's about $23.70 a night. So I'm just going to bring it down to $2,000 a night. So that's $14,000 a week, right? Well, if I can raise that to go from 2,000 to 2,500 a night and do 6 nights, right? So what does that come out to be? 6, 12, and then 6, 3. That's $15,000 a night. So that's an extra $1,000, and that's with a gap. So then if I can sell that gap at 50% off, make another 1,200, I'm at like 16.2, right? So 16.2 versus 14,000. Don't hold me to this math because I'm not calculating it, right? That's another $2,100. That's like an extra 13, 14, 15%. So typically what I will do is I'll raise the price at like 25% on the 3 side, and then like 35% on the 2-night side, and then 40 to 45%, sometimes 50%, depending on what the current ADR is on the 50%, and let it roll that way. So those are all things that I'm looking at and I'm calculating. I most likely will adjust that, like probably Monday or Tuesday, to go from the 7 to the 3-2-1 immediately. I believe that we can make more money that way across the board. And this is a super property that should be bigger than my number one property that's down there. I'm estimating $400,000 in revenue off of this property. So we'll see really what happens. And just like with anything else, we got to test. Just test. I love this SDR Insights, but I find so many homes in the 90th percentile with less than 10 reviews. Do you have a minimum review count? Um, I don't really care about the reviews at all, to be honest with you. The longer your average nightly stay is, the less reviews that you have. It was funny. John Hodge and I were talking about this. He has primarily small properties, like, studios, 1, 2 bedrooms. And, he's got probably 5 times the amount of reviews that I have. I have all bigger properties. My portfolio runs almost 4 nights, on an average stay. He does a lot of one night stays. So, I don't really take a whole lot of that into account. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think all the intangibles, learning how to evaluate properties from an opportunity standpoint, from a view standpoint, from like, oh my gosh, it's got an 8 out of 10 views, but if I go in, I can, chop the trees down by 10 feet, then I can see, the mountain range. I did that in Swananoa outside of Asheville a few years ago. And we took 12 of these trees were like 50, 60 feet tall. And we took 12 feet off the neighbor's trees. They allowed us to do it because you can only see the tip top of the mountain range. Then, and this was from the second deck. The third deck, you could see a little bit more, but we wanted to view from the second deck, which was the main level. And I think we took 12 or 13 feet off the top of those trees and just chopped them, right? So all of it here, and then just boom, boom. And then you could see right over it and see the view and see the sunset. And that gives us a whole lot of additional marketability. STR Insights, our DNA, the data sources don't know that, right? So those are the things that we have to find the opportunity. It's like finding that extra bedroom, in a property. Or, I was reviewing a property for someone a few weeks ago. And right off the kitchen, they had a stairwell, and it was a pantry. So it went kitchen, pantry, a little bit of an opening, like 2 or 3 feet, and then a stairwell. And I asked them, I said, well, what's the size of that pantry? And they didn't know. And I said, well, get the size of that pantry. Well, that pantry was 4 feet wide. And I said, okay, so 4 feet, so 48 inches, then what's from the wall to the stairs? They had another, I think it was 26 inches or something, just over 2 feet. So they're like 6 feet 2 inches. I said, how deep does that go? And it was like 7 feet. Awesome. You can, and this was, I think it was a 5.2, right? Was it a 5.2? Maybe a 5.2, 5.2 or 5.3. I think it was a 5.2. And I said, awesome. For probably around $15,000 roughly, give or take, could be 12, could be 18, somewhere in that area, you can go in and add a half bath, because huge difference when you have 5 bedrooms. You really should, 5.4 is really what we want, or at least a 5.3, but now you can have at least a 5.2.5. That's a sound investment for me and gives me marketability. Absolutely no question. So those are the things that I'm looking for more so than the reviews when I'm going in and evaluating a property for purchase. Great question though. Is that it? Are we out of questions? Nobody else? If that's the case, then I'm going to go and enjoy this wonderfully beautiful day. But I will stay here as long as you guys keep popping in questions. It's going to be a short AMA. You're welcome, Joe. Thanks, buddy. Happy Easter to you as well. If you guys have any questions, drop them in. Oh, here we go. Hang on. Let's see. Somebody text me a question? That's weird. Oh, gotcha. Just somebody asking for a one-on-one meeting next week. Where to invest, Dave? If we sell the smoky pool cabin, I've got $1 million in cash. Where, Dave, that is a much bigger conversation that needs to be had. Are you looking to pay cash and buy one property, or put as much cash as you have in? Are you looking to divide that $1 million in cash and buy 3, 4, or 5 properties? If it was me, I would probably be looking at 3 to 4 properties with $1 million in cash, and probably roughly around that 3 to 3.5 range. So I have enough money to be able to level it up once I purchase it. I see the majority of the opportunity right now in that $600,000 range to $800,000 range. I'm not really looking to buy a property that's over $1 million because I think most of us are going to be overpaying in those markets. I would probably stay out of the Smokies at this point, and just same the investing strategy never changes. Staying in the secondary and the tertiary markets that have traffic drivers, and just staying steadfast to the proximity, the location, the views. I mean, the biggest thing that I really want you guys to have got to have a mindset shift with is you're not buying the property. Even Dave, like you said, Smokies, pool cabin, don't care. What's your views? What's your proximity to either downtown Gatlinburg? Can I walk, or how close to Dollywood? It's and the thing that sucks that I believe in the Smokies is most of those lots are so small. We have no bandwidth to work outside. Outside is 5 times more important than inside. So that's what, if you look at every one of my properties, it's all about outside. The only place that I have that is, something I don't have the room to be able to do something outside is my condo, but it's so close to Glacier National Park, and I've got the insulation and the zoning and all those types of things. But I'm buying the outside. I'm buying that proximity to the national park, right? It's still got views. It's got all those things, but we're buying the outside. I mean, my least performing property right now is that property in the beachfront 3-2 in Fort Morgan, Alabama. It doesn't have room for. It cost me like $22,000 to $25,000 to put in a hot tub, just because of what I have to do with my deck to be able to reinforce it to put a hot tub under. Either that, or I'm slamming it underneath the house and there's no view of the water, and that doesn't do any good. It doesn't have kayaks, it doesn't have paddle boards, because I don't want that liability. It's just, there's no room inside. Like, literally, I have no space anywhere to even add any arcade 1-up video games or a infinity game table. So I have, on the back deck, I've got like a $700-800 fire pit with outdoor dining and Adirondack chairs. That's about all I've got. But I've got an amazing view. It's super close, like 25-30 feet, and you're on the beach right down our boardwalk. But I don't have all those other amenities, so I can't really compete. I've got a duplex, it's like a 5-5 next door to me with 2 hot tubs and a mega pool and all that type of stuff. That's really challenging. And that's why I can't max that out. I don't classify that as a super property, because I'm not maxing out the return. I'm still doing well, but it's the lowest performer because I haven't been able to take advantage of the outside. You look at, it's a must, in the Smokies. It's a must. You look at in Miami and Phoenix and Arizona, and I'm looking in Scottsdale and Cave Creek right now. And the reason that I'm looking there is because of the fact that the pricing that I'm looking at is about 20% lower than it was when I was there a year and a half ago. And I see that there's opportunity in those 2 bedrooms that are around $600,000 if you can find the right ones. If you're willing to put, $75,000, $50,000, $60,000, $75,000 into that property. But one of the things that I'm looking at is the size of the backyard, the footprint. Can I put in even a small putting green? Can I put in a fire pit if it doesn't have one? Or if it's just a backyard with a retaining wall between it and the neighbors and the pool, then, I'm passing on those. But I need some space outside to be able to do something to attract guests, right? I'm not looking for a 3, 4, 5 bedroom. I'm not looking to do anything Mac Daddy with $1 million backyard like a lot of the places there in Miami now. But I'm looking for things on the smaller side that I can go in and do it, because I love living inside that $600,000 to $800,000 buy box. Great question. If we have $800,000 to invest, do you have thoughts on Orange Beach versus Gulf Shores? I mean, yeah, Lena, that's a great question. West Beach is where you want to be. So remember, it's not just market versus market. It's the micro markets in these markets. So you've got that whole Alabama Gulf area. You've got, kind of the west side of Perdido Key. You're welcome, Dave. You got the west side of Perdido Key. You've got Orange Beach. Then you've got East Beach. Then you have West Beach. Then you go out to Fort Morgan, right? And West Beach is the prime spot to be. I've owned in East Beach. I own currently in West Beach. I've owned and I currently own in Fort Morgan. The prime location. And once again, I would not go and buy one property with $800,000. I'd be breaking that up into 2 properties. Unless you're going to go in and buy a 1.3 $1.4 million property that's tier one or tier two, and then invest that extra cash to max daddy it out. But I think you can get a much better return in a different market, unless you want to spend 300,000-400,000 after you close. I think you can get a better investment in a smaller market and a lower price point. So it all depends. Is this lifestyle asset that you want to be in that market, or is this going to be purely a financially driven decision? That's the first step that we have to take before we make, any investment. In general, is it better to upgrade a current STR or to purchase a different one in a different area? I feel like I'm sounding like an attorney or a CPA. It depends, Scott. It's a great question, but here's the deal: is you have to know your skills first, right? So, what are your skills that you possess? So, a lot of people come to me with that same question because most people don't want to sell. And they don't want to sell because they get emotionally tied to a property and they think they can turn it around, right? And they want to get to that 50,000 net a year, like in my 550 plan, right? But they're only doing 25. Well, how are they going to double revenue? Adding video games, and updating furniture and throwing in murals isn't going to do that ever, ever. So you really have to be able to analyze where you're at today. How much time, effort, and skill is it going to take you to go from where you're at to what you want as your desired outcome? And how big is that delta? And then, how much equity do you have? That's when you go in and you do a return on equity audit. And in most cases, it's probably better to sell. And here's the big thing that I'll tell you guys. You think about when you bought, if this is your first property, you bought your first property and it's doing okay, or maybe it's not doing okay. Maybe it's making a couple of grand a month. But then you think about, if you've really continued to educate yourself, can you buy a better property today? Are you a better host? Would you buy in the same location? So here's the number one question that I will always pose to people that ask me this. If you have X in equity, if I was to hand you that in cash today, would you rebuy that same property as is? And if the answer is no, you sell. If the answer is yes, then you keep it and you keep working with it. Lena, condo, I would very rarely, Lena, would I be looking at buying condos. Very rarely. I own one condo. I said for years I would never buy one. The only reason I bought it is because it was insulated so close, and it was the construction and the interior was already at this super high end that are really probably not ever going to be replicated. Do you still consider buying in Gulf Shores area? I just bought one in late fall and, did almost a $400,000 renovation on West Beach Boulevard. So if it's the right property, yes. I believe, and I said this in a workshop right before the start of the STR Wealth Conference when I was there with Sean Moore from Vodacy. If you have revenue management skills, design skills, and marketing skills to where you can outperform the competition, you can go into any market. I believe I can go into any market and ascend to the 90th percentile. I still have to choose wisely. I still need to know how to underwrite properties and to pick the right properties and that type of stuff. But I strongly believe I can go into any market. The most saturated markets, I can go into, Orlando, Florida. I can go into, the Smokies. I'm looking at going into Scottsdale and Cave Creek. I would recommend 90% of you don't even think about fucking touching, Scottsdale or Cave Creek today. Right. So this all has to do with what you're going to do. You can't just buy a property and think the property is going to sell itself. You can't buy a property and hire my wife or a sheet or somebody just to come in design and think that it's going to, make money just because of the way that it looks. Revenue management and marketing skills are the two biggest things that move the needle for us today. And if you can be really good at those two, then you can move the needle anywhere. You're welcome, Scott. Hopefully that helps, Scott, Lena. It's just the thing that I love doing this and helping you guys and trying to answer your questions, but it's what I talk about, like with my inner circle and mastermind members. It's about knowing and being known. There's so much more that goes in to giving advice. And, it's like Dave, he's got $1 million. I can't, Scott, you got $800,000. Or Lena does. I need to know where you're at today. I need to know what your household income is, how secure your jobs, how much, cash, how much stock market, how much real estate equity do you have? I need to know all these things. And what's your ultimate goal? I need to know all of these things before I can really give you advice, because most people are just saying, oh, yeah, go buy here, go buy there. That's fucking reckless because we don't know all that information, behind. That's why we as coaches have to be super invested into you as an individual. And if we're not, you're going to get really bad information because we don't really have everything to be able to work with. We got to have all of that to be able to help. Anybody else? Well, 25 minutes. Come on, people. I want to help you. Ask some questions. Make sure I didn't miss anything. Sandeep Nanda asked me, and when I posted this, how did I lose so much weight? I'm going to tell you again, even though I put it in there just because so I could buy a little bit of time so you guys can ask some questions. I'll kind of tell you the whole story. I turned 50 May 11th of last year. About 2 weeks prior to turning 50, I was diagnosed being pre-diabetic. I was 306 pounds when I walked in, and the it scared the what out of me because I have a lot of health issues in my family. Anyways, I started keto, which was okay for a little while. I got off of that, but then basically I just did some research and learned that people of my age, I started walking on the treadmill 5 times a week, 15 incline, 3 miles an hour, cut out a lot of wine, drinking a ton of these, all that type of stuff. I think I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Zen water before. This is 33 ounces. I'm drinking like 4 to 5 of these a day, today. So I started fasting, intermittent fasting. I haven't eaten anything since 6 o'clock last night. And I started following Gary Brecka. If you guys aren't familiar with Gary Brecka, check out 10X Health. So I've done some 72-hour fasts that he does. I'm on all of his supplements now. It gets harder as you get to be older. There's no question. So sell first investment property, and I'm sitting on close to 200,000 equity in the house, but only 100,000 after furnishings, etc. I only paid 255 for it. How much would that property have to make yearly for you to hold it? So I guess here's my question, Melissa. If you sell the house, you get $200,000 in cash back out of the equity. That's really what I want to know for you. So here's the deal. If I own a property, regardless of what I paid for it, that doesn't matter. It's just about the equity. This is what I'm looking at, the return on equity audit for me, and this is going to be different for you. Excuse me. So 4 years, 4 to 5 years for me. So if I'm making $40,000 a year net income out of your property, and I have $200,000 in equity, that's a 5-year return. So I got to make $40,000 this year, then the second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year. I add all those together, 40,000 times 5, $200,000 in equity. For me, I'm selling that. I'm getting that $200,000 in equity, and I'm going and looking for like 2 banner out properties. The one that I purchased and I showed everybody at the STR Wealth Conference. Pay $670 for it, put 2025 into it, do 140, 150 in gross revenue. That property, by the way, was sold as a 4-bedroom. It's actually a 5-bedroom, so I increase my equity, and it helps me increase cash flow through rental income as well. So I do about 40 to 40% roughly net. So if I do 150, I'm going to do roughly about 65 to 70,000 net income off of that property. So if I do that twice, now I've just taken, let's just say 50,000 net income, and I push that to 130. That's how I've leveled up my entire portfolio. That's the 550, 250 program. I just replicate that. I will not invest into a property that I can generate less than $50,000 in net income off of. And it doesn't have to be $1 million property. I'm going to share a secret with all you guys right now. I've only spent over $1 million one time purchasing a property. One time. I mean, I've made most of my money in the $450,000 to $800,000, buy box. So cool. Awesome. If you have $200,000, then I 100% would sell that property if the return is less. So if you're making $50,000 a year net, this is not gross, net, then that's going to take you 4 years to hit that $200,000. Now that's iffy for me. Most people need to hold on to that. Most of you, if it's like 6, 7 years, you probably need to consider selling. If it's like 8, 9, 10 years plus, so if you're making $20,000 net and you got $200,000 in equity, then you definitely need to sell, no question. Do you personally coach everyone in Inner Circle? Yes, Lena. We'll have actually everybody here on the next weekend for a 2-day boot camp. And I spend most of my days just coaching and helping people in my Inner Circle and my mastermind. Do I still play golf? No, I have not played golf in about 7 years. But that is part of my life plan along with my wife. Ironically, my wife's last time she played golf was 18 years ago when she was pregnant with our oldest daughter, and she won the club championship in a playoff of all things. I was caddying for her. So that's one of the reasons that we're looking for a very specific place in our buy box as a lifestyle asset in Phoenix. Well, not really Phoenix, but North Scott, specifically North Scottsdale and Southern Cave Creek. We don't want to be in and kind of by the old town stuff and in the middle of the city. We don't want to be at a country club. We kind of want to be in the desert and have a place a little bit farther away. So we have every time that we're looking for a property, we determine exactly what we want and what fits into that buy box before we even start looking. So I've been looking in Cave Creek and Southern Cave Creek and North Scottsdale for probably about 3 weeks now. There is no question we will buy something in the next 3 to 4 months and may wait till June or July once it really gets hot and over 100 degrees and nobody wants to go there, and that's when properties will sit longer than they will right now, coming out of they just had their biggest run with the Waste Management open and just Super Bowls, all the shit that goes on there, like in February and March. It's incredible. But also I'm making sure that I stay away from the saturated bedroom counts that make it harder to earn money. So I'm looking in that 2-bedroom range. I would take a 3. If I took a 3, I would probably market it and do something as a 2, to be honest with you. But I'm really looking in that $600,000 to $700,000 range. That's going to require about 50 to 75 grand to upgrade, because then I can turn that into a $900,000, $1 million property with my wife's talents to be able to do that. How much of your available cash would you budget for down payment, remodel, updates, and keep for unknown? So I believe everybody should have at least 6 months carry costs factored into your purchase. So if you're going to buy a $450,000 property and you're putting 90,000 down at 20%, and another 3% is going to go into closing, and another 10 grand or whatever, it's basically going to be 100 grand, another 10 or 50, say 20 grand, you're at $120,000 in cash. In regards to cash, I don't believe that any of you should be spending. If you have less than $500,000 in total, like cash, stocks, retirement, I don't think you should be spending more than 25% of that. If you have over $1 million, then I'm more comfortable being in like that 30 to 40% range. If you're, and I never go even above that. I'm sitting on 2.4 million in cash right now. That doesn't include my net worth, real estate holdings, anything else. And I probably will spend 500 to 600,000 of that. That's it. I'm just very, very conservative. Now, the more wealth that you have, the more percentage that you can spend. But I see way too many people that are making $150,000 a year household income. They have $200,000. They're literally pulling everything out of their Roth IRAs to go and make an investment. That's just, and they have kids. And to me, that's reckless. I get that you want to get ahead. I get that you're willing to take the risk, but if you're going to do that, you better fucking hire somebody like me or another coach or whoever it is to help you, because that is just crazy talk to go and do that all by yourself as a beginner and take on that much risk. Just be super careful. I think too many people are way too aggressive and they don't know what they're doing. How do you feel about HOAs in a beach market, community pools? I'm thinking wealthy Wendy doesn't want to share a community amenity, but it may depend on target guests. Yeah, I agree 1,000%. I'm not a big fan. It's better than nothing, to be honest with you. There's no question, but it depends how wealthy Wendy is. There's no question. My family stay at condos and stuff. I'm looking for a condo right now in 30A for my girls to go to fall break. I don't need a house with a private pool and that type of stuff. Would the girls rather have a private pool? 100%. Would we rather have a private pool? 100%. But there's this buying threshold that people have, right? I don't want to go spend $25,000 you know, for a condo or a house for 3 people just to get the private pool. So I'm HOAs. I don't like HOAs for rental properties at all. I've had a run in with one HOA. It was my first Smith Lake property that I purchased, and basically had to threaten to sue the president individually and the members of the board individually. Which I've actually never sued anybody in my life, and I've only been sued one time, which is kind of surprising with all the businesses that I've done. But that's HOA. I love my HOA here in my primary residence. I mean, now we have 30-day minimum rentals. Actually, the town has 30 days. We're 6 months. Sorry, but it's a byproduct of the marketplace, right? There's a lot of places you have to. I'm trying to think how many HOAs I'm invested into right now. One, two, I think I have 4 HOAs that I own in. And now, if you're going to go buy and it has an HOA, then and almost everybody that has a condo has some type of condo association or HOA. You need to make sure that you're checking the last year's minutes, and I typically request 3 years if possible. I also want to see their financials. So one of the things down at the beaches that a lot of people aren't aware of is you need to know how these condo associations, what their financial wherewithal are, because the biggest thing that can crush you, you go in to buy a $400,000 condo, and then 5 months later they have a $40,000 assessment because you didn't know that they were coming up for renewal and they actually have done bad financing. The majority of small condo associations are financing their renewal payments, just FYI. Most people don't know that. So that's part of the risk investing into an HOA, is how is their solvency. And that's why I want to look at more than just 1 year of minutes and that type of stuff. And a lot of them won't give it to you. But if I can't get it, then I would probably just move on. Hey, Claudia, closing on old rental property into 1031 next month. Need your opinion on top 3 STR markets at the moment. 500,000 down. Time is ticking for me. I mean, once again, it depends on your skills. I can't emphasize enough is, I mean, if I had 5, so I'm going to practice Gestalt, Claudia, because I don't know what your skills are, and I don't know if you can design on your own, and if you have relationships with contractors. If I had $500,000 in cash, I definitively would not put that much down. I'd probably find some place around $1 million to where I could close at 200, maybe 250, and save 250 for renovations and turning it into a super property. And I'd be looking in the Outer Banks if it was me. The Outer Banks, if you have cash, is probably the best return that you can find, especially out of any beach market. But it's tier 1, maybe tier 2 on smaller properties. And here's the deal. I mean, look, I bought 2 properties in this exact same location. Kitty Hawk on the south side, north of Duck into Corolla, no more than 2 to 3 miles. So north of Duck and Corolla, there's no houses on the east or west. There's just one row. It's all beachfront. You're going to spend about $2 million. We spent about $2 million up there and had just over $400,000 in renovations and furnishings. It was probably about 270, 280 just in renovations. And I should say just deferred maintenance. Siding, sliding glass doors, windows, decks, all that type of stuff. Then we bought the second one down in Duck, and very similar thing. So the thing that you have to understand is it's a lot of work down there. So that's a huge place where you want to negotiate seller concessions for cash at closing, as opposed to negotiating in price down to try to conserve your cash to put it back into the property. But with big cash, like the 800,000, the million, the 500,000 that we're talking about, if you're going to put it into one property, that's the only place that I would go right now with one property. I would literally, if you have that 500 to $1 million and you're not looking in the Outer Banks, I'd be looking for multiple properties in markets. But look, I love, once again, the secondary and the tertiary markets. I also love, I forgot who that was at the very beginning that was asking about these ski markets. And, the ski markets, typically do better, and that depends in the summer. And the summer months, like in, Western North Carolina, in most cases are better I shouldn't say Western North Carolina, in the Banner Elk area are better than even during the winter at, Beach and also Sugar Mountain. So it's one of the reasons that I like being right in between those two, because the psychology of people wanting to go up the mountain to the ski resorts, is different during the summer. So that's why I see that Banner Elk specifically outperforms all those other markets. And so you will never ever, unless the market drastically shifts, hear me of being on Sugar or on Beach Mountain. You'll never hear me being in Grandfather Mountain, Linville, Blowing Rock, Seven Devils. You won't see me there. You will only see me. I own two properties there, both in Banner Elk. One's walking distance, the newest one, to the village. The other one's, if people are familiar with it, up Holly Nut Gap, up above Wildcat Lake, at the very, very top of the mountain, the very last house in a cul-de-sac, 2.25 acres, super private, 50-mile views, long range of the mountains, and just something that probably it's almost impossible to be replicated. It's, with the guest house and, all that type of stuff, and over an acre and a half of grass in a backyard. Those are the things that I'm looking at to kind of insulate when I'm making an investment. So that's why I'm more apt to look at the individual property, Claudia, as opposed to market by market. But really, I mean, if Dave and you and Lena are looking to go into, make one investment with all that cash, then I would strongly be considering the Outer Banks, and right inside of that micro area, the south side of Duck to the south side of Corolla. The one house that we have, Ocean Crest, is just under a mile, so they can ride the bikes to get to Duck. And then, the other one has, sunrise, sunset views, because there's no houses, right? It's beachfront. They're both 6 bedrooms. They both have pools. They both have 2 hot tubs. So 2 hot tubs is a big deal, right? So you think about that. I only know I have 2 twin brothers that are my mastermind, and they have 2 hot tubs at a 22-bedroom property. Outside of that, I've never seen it before. So that's something that I'm adding to a lot of my bigger properties, and I'm doing as well. You can have parents in one, kids in another, whatever. It just gives a lot more options for, a low cost, and still pools as well. So look at the property, look at the micro markets, not just the macro market. Awesome. Thanks for joining me today. Really appreciate you guys. If you have any questions, or you're watching this on a recording, just pop a comment down below and tag me, and I'll jump in and answer your question. Have a great weekend. Happy Easter, everybody.